Well, I guess it's a bold man who would choose to go live tonight in the middle of everything that's going on in the sports world. It's kind of what we do here. We just go live and see who wants to play along. We have our own little watch party, and it may be a lonely one, but we'll be doing our thing here on the Buddy Martin Show tonight. Thank you for those who choose to join us. We'll be along a moment with Ben Troupe. Ben Troupe ran into a very interesting person he wants to talk about, someone I care a lot about. That's why we asked the question, who is the greatest Gator football player and person you've known? Well, if we're reaching you out there tonight in TV land, we hope you'll join us and tell us as we are launching into another night of purgatory with this internet, but we think we're going to make it. Stay tuned. Ben Troupe will be along. We'd like to hear your comments. And remember this name. We'll talk about him tonight. Carlos Alvarez. Do you know who he was? Somebody very special. Stand by. We'll be along shortly with the guys. We'll talk about that, Gator football, maybe a little opening day, and what the heck, even March Madness, which is on all our TV screens tonight. Stay tuned to the Buddy Martin Show.
Yes, it's time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him what you're thinking. But be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye.
You ready, champ? I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Program is called the Buddy Martin Show. That's why I'm on it. I think you can figure that out for yourself. Tonight, as we battle the gremlins of the internet and all the things that go along with technology, I'm so happy to see some of you join me. I know it's one of those nights when you'll be watching your television and the scores, and we'll go over some of those later. Franz Beard will be here, Ben Troupe at some point. I want you to think about this question, and thank you for Dan and Tommy and Bruce, and thank you for the kind comment there. Bruce, I'm glad to be your guy, and we do appreciate your loyalty to this program. So, keep hanging in there with us. We're going some places, doing some things. It's taking a while, but Tommy, Dan, Bruce, my regulars, appreciate that very much. Think of the name Carlos Alvarez. If you're like me when I was younger, back in the day, and people mentioned people like Dale Van Sickle and all those old guys, I thought, who cares? Who cares? Well, I learned later why you should care about people like that. So you've got some stories you want to talk about tonight. That's fine. Put them up on the screen. We'll just dissect them. Glad to hear whatever you want to offer. David Arnoff, thank you very much for the kind comments. Yes, it is my home for the moment, and loving it very much. Here, hard against the bay. St. Andrews Bay. You can't see it behind me, but there's a beautiful bay out there every day, and waking up and see that beautiful body of water and birds, ducks, all kind of things happening out there, and watching seagulls dive for their breakfast, etc. What a gorgeous place. It's night now, of course. All I see is far off is some red lights blinking out there. But you know what? It's a scary thing because those big ships that you see, they're not quite that big. We get some huge ships coming through this channel. They look like they're closer. They're probably a couple of miles. There's a channel right through here, through the St. Andrews Bay, and some big ones. So scary thing could happen in Baltimore. All the best to those families up there affected by that. So, all right, today's one of those days when, things just didn't go right. The little things that can set you off will, and sometimes there are little things that become big things. It's always to do with something to do with either technology or a bank account. What is it about banks that makes it so hard to stay in time? The simplest task. And anyway, I'm not gonna vent tonight. Told myself I'm not gonna do that. I'm going to hang in there until my man Ben Troupe gets here, and he'll lighten things up. I want to say good evening to you, and thank you all for coming aboard tonight. And I really appreciate these people here, my pals, my buddies like Ben, who we've been together for a couple of years now and become good friends, and the friendship that we have. And we do this show for you, and because we like doing it. We just stupid enough to think that we like to get on and talk about stuff, and mostly to hear what you have to say. I mean, some comments about Wyatt Langford, what happened today. Got a base hit today, RBI today, Dan says. And so we'll talk about anything you want to talk about. But tonight, especially, I want to talk about a special person that in my life, and I know some of you say, well, I've heard about him, never did know much about him. Well, Ben didn't know much about him either, but he did get the message, and he met this guy today. And I want to spend a minute while we're waiting on our watch party to see if Clemson is going to hang on the last 5 minutes to beat Arizona, etc., and we'll talk about some of the scores later. I just tonight, the Alabama North Carolina game looks like a good one. So let's go to the orange and blue room and see where the man is. So here's a guy that if he weren't doing this, he might be a man of the cloth because he's very passionate when he talks about things that he cares about. That would be Ben Troupe. And what's up, Benny?
What's going on with you today, buddy?
Well, I'm sitting here trying to keep a good attitude because I've had a day of just nothing going right. You never like to see the word fraud alert come up on your bank account. That's
yeah.
No.
I mean, well, that's one of two things. Either one, you got more money than you letting on, buddy, or two, people know who you are. They're like, hey man, I saw him in the rest.
Or somebody in the family misplaced their credit card, perhaps. But anyway, we'll go into that. Ben, let's get right to the heart of the matter. This is a night we can talk about a lot of things because there are things we can discuss. We're going to discuss on the Gators. We always do. This is what we do on the show. And there's baseball today. I don't want to talk about it. I know the Rays look terrible. I have to watch the game. We can discuss your Bravos later if you like. And we always like to weigh in on what's happening in spring practice with Billy, some of the latest things, coaching changes, etc. But you were familiarized with a person today that, in my mind, every Gator should know about. I know they don't. I see already somebody making a comment here about who was it. I read about him, I know about him, but I don't know. Here, Tommy Seal, who's one of our loyal listeners, I'm too young to remember Carlos, but I love hearing stories about the Gator greats. Okay, so we can do that. And by the way, Dan Bond, who's always keeping us in the loop, U.S. softball goes up 7 in the bottom of the 6th. To lose 13-12 to Mississippi State. So we don't like hearing stuff like that, but hey, it happens. Ben. Carlos Alvarez.
Carlos Alvarez. Let me say this. I was blessed. I want to say around 3 years ago, I had my Florida Georgia Legends series in Jekyll Island, the Westin and Jekyll. And BJ is always talking to me about getting one of the greats. And I've had some greats down there. I've had some incredible people come down there. D Webb and Shane Matthews. We've had some great ones. We've had some great ones.
Yeah.
Well, Carlos Alvarez was a person that was always on my checklist, always on my bucket list. He happens to live in Tallahassee, by the way. He practices law in Tallahassee. One of the most prestigious, lawyers there is in the state of Florida and even around the country. So when we reached out to him, and I got him to come on, got him to come down. Number one, buddy, Carlos Alvarez, and I mean this respectfully, Willie Jackson, Chris Doring, Ike Hilliard, Reedale Anthony, Jaquez Green, Percy Harvin, Taylor Jacobs, Riche Caldwell, the list goes on and on. Jabbar Gaffney, Carlos Rogers, Carlos Perez. Carlos Alvarez is the greatest wide receiver to ever come through Florida, and I'm gonna tell you why.
And you don't have to sell me too hard, by the way.
I'm to the listeners. Shane Matthews is the originator of the fun and gun. Danny Warfel took it to the next level. I get that. There is no fun and gun without Shane because he started off. Carlos Alvarez, not bigger than what he meant to Florida football. It's what he meant to people. I mean, from Cuba, comes over to America, not knowing no English, right? Knowing no English. South in Miami, comes to Florida. Look, comes to Florida, still trying to figure out his way, not just in football, in life. Use football as a vehicle, right, to open up doors for so many others, but was a hell of a football player. I'm talking about was so good at football to where nothing against these DBs and these other teams, but it's irrelevant. You're not stopping him. But as great as he is as a football player, even greater human being, I'm sitting there at the Westin Hotel on the second floor. Got our own little private room up there. And I'm sitting there listening to Carlos Alvarez, as humble as they come, as mild-mannered as they come, as soft-spoken as they come. Mind you, the greatest compliment you can get is when Carlos Alvarez looks at me and said, "Ben, I remember when you was at Florida." I mean, because I'm sitting there to hear the stories, and there are great stories out there. There isn't a greater story at wide receiver when it comes to University of Florida. I'm sorry, and if we had a wide receiver room, and we had a wide receiver reunion, and they were waiting to eat, no one can sit down or eat until Carlos gets there.
I love that.
And I love Chris Dorn and what he meant to the wide receiver position. Love Taylor Jacobs and Richelle Collier, and I can hear you, and the list goes on. And even Ricky Pearsall, when I interviewed him last year, I asked him why he come back to Florida. And he said, "I want to put my name up there with some of the greats. I don't want to just be a guy that came to Florida. I want to be a guy that you remember." Mm-hmm. If there is, I don't know who came before Carlos Alvarez. But everybody I just named came after him. I mean, Travis McGriff. I mean, and the list. And let me tell you something.
Ask his daddy Lee about what Carlos Alvarez meant to him. Exactly. Everything.
If when you go to the University of Florida, you know what they're supposed to do? You play receiver. Your first week in Florida, they're supposed to sit you down in this room, and they're supposed to show you what you represent, and they're supposed to show you Carlos last. They're going to show you all these other receivers. Oh, my God, look at this guy. Oh, my. But let me show you, listen, to every rule, there is an exception. In order to be exception, you have to be exceptional. Carlos Alvarez, number one, he had a 30 for 30. ESPN said, "Look, dude, the world needs to know about this man." And like I said, invited me to his home, which I haven't had a chance to go to yet. But, buddy, when you in this media business, there are conversations, there are interviews that floor you. I know last week we talked about the awards you won, but not that you won it, but who you beat to win the award. That makes it more. Oh, when you get that Emmy, you thinking this. Carlos Alvarez to me treated me like. Carlos Alvarez treated me as if I was him and he was me. I'm like, man, he was like, "No, Ben, I appreciate you having me," because no matter what, as accomplished as Carlos Alvarez is on the field, he's even more, if not more, accomplished off. But every player wants to be remembered. I don't care what they say. You want to be remembered.
Or have a legacy of some kind.
Carlos Alvarez. Listen, Carlos Alvarez to the wide receiver position is what Steve Spurrier is to the coach position. He is that huge of a player. And like I said, buddy, when I'm looking at Carlos Alvarez, he's like a fictional character. He's like a, he ain't even real. He told me one of his best stories was he's sitting at Florida Field and Muhammad Ali comes to speak. He rolls out there in a limo. He gets out and he speaks, right? He said his girlfriend at the time, he said, he's speaking, he gets out of the limo, he speaks. He says Muhammad Ali was his hero. He says he's running. He said Muhammad Ali gets in his limo and he's driving off. Carlos Alvarez said, "I'm running as fast as I can and I'm beating on the side of the window to get him to stop." And he stopped, let the window down, and shook my hand. Let me tell you something, people. Most people will never meet their idol or they won't. You hope they do. Not only did he meet him, he got to hear him speak, let the window down, shook it. He said, Muhammad Ali hand like engulfed my hand. And the thing about Carlos Alvarez, in the days of, Megatron, 6'5", 240 pounds, can run a 4.3, or Julio Jones or Terrell Owens, small guy, dominated though. I don't use the word
fast, strong, about 5'10", maybe 5'10 and a half.
He was. I'm so happy. The same way every year, the University of Florida has a mural up of Willie Jackson Sr. Being one of two of the first black players to ever come through Florida.
George.
Carlos Alvarez. Yes, Carlos Alvarez is supposed to be celebrated every year. They're supposed to come together and say, Carlos, every generation, every freshman class of Florida should hear you speak. Because I think when you think about what the University of Florida does for you as a person, not just as an athlete, look at Carlos Alvarez. Look at him. I mean, of all the places to practice law, he practices law in Tallahassee. Yeah. So he's surrounded by, guarded and gold down there. But I'm telling you, buddy, Carlos Alvarez is one of those type of gentlemen that if you didn't know him and you heard him speak, you would be like, man, who are you? What do you mean? And his story is one, when people talk about, the American dream, Carlos Alvarez fleeing Cuba. That's Carlos Alvarez. Want a better life. That's Carlos. People will say, hey, man, when he tells the story, it sounds fake, but that's how real it is. And I just appreciate him. I appreciate him giving me some time that week. I mean, I got a chance to know him over like a couple of days and just getting that type of knowledge. Because like I say, buddy, as when you come into Florida or you play college football, you are the current. You're not the greatest though. You're the current. And it's all about the current crop. I get it. No matter what you do. But Carlos Alvarez says, name something in football. And I'm talking about individual. Name it. I've done it. Lead the league, done it. Catches, yards.
He would never say that, but that's
he would never say that. But when people say, hey man,
touchdown passes, SEC records, consensus All-American as a sophomore when freshman couldn't play. I think maybe the only one in the history of Florida is a sophomore. Listen, you're preaching to the choir, Benny. You know that. You're talking about my man here. I go back with Carlos from the day he started playing football there. And I'm not saying I know everything about it, but I know a lot about him. I've written magazine stories and articles. I went back and read last night an article I wrote last year 2 years ago on Carlos and about his special that came out on ESPN. I was blessed to be in it a couple of times. Gaspar Gonzalez took that, and now he's converted it to a movie. It's now a movie, and they had that meeting last night, and Freddie Weeby was kind enough to send me a couple of clips. I can't get them on the air of Carlos talking about stuff. And, and I'm so happy he's getting his due because, as you say, whatever he accomplished in football was phenomenal. Whatever he accomplished in life was bigger. The things he did, do you know he stood for Willie Jackson and Leonard George at a time on his team when nobody else did. He stood for them, and he voted for a union because he felt like the minority players needed it. Not for him; he didn't need it, but he voted for them. Now, union, what a communist! He got suspended the game for doing that. But he also, in being a fantastic player, and I can tell you about Carlos Alvarez's plays in my sleep. And so can Franz, especially the opening day against Houston. We can discern it. He even talked about that tonight, about how that happened, about how he was coached to do that. The third play, touchdown pass, a team that only threw 2 the whole year last year. The third play of the new season, touchdown pass from John Reese, and on and on and on. But, he got the raw end of a stick because the next year his coach was gone. Ray Graves got kicked upstairs. They brought in Doug Dickey. I like Doug, but he was the worst person who could have been there for the Super Softs. The worst guy could have coached Carlos. The exact opposite. Didn't like to throw the football. And John Reeves was there. He made him an option quarterback, which was a joke. And they took a team that should have been won 8 or 9, and I think won 6 or 7 games. And Carlos got hurt. And one of the reasons that he got hurt, in my opinion, I can't prove this, was Dickey made him run the stadium steps so many times. Oh, he wasn't a troublemaker. He was a good teammate. He was conditioned. He didn't drink and whatever. but he then hurt his knee and almost cost him getting drafted. He would have been a number one pick without a doubt in the NFL, but he got hurt his back. He played his third year, and here's an interesting story. I was working in New York, but I came back to Miami for his last game in Miami, and that was the big famous game where John Reeves had a chance to break the all-time passing record for yardage, and Miami tried to keep the ball away from him. They were behind by 30-something points, and they wouldn't turn. They kept trying to keep the ball away from Alfred Reeves to make the record. I went down the sideline, and I heard this with my own ears. So finally somebody said, Coach, let's let him score. Let him score. And get the ball back at him. John needs 17 yards, whatever. Dickie didn't want to do it, but to his credit, he agreed. All right, when the ball snapped, just let the guy score. I was on the sidelines, heard it, saw it, whatever. Of course, what happened, unfortunately, they snapped the ball. All 11 Gators fell on the ground. The famous flop play. And he scored. And Florida got the ball back, and John Reeves threw a pass, and he got the record. Miami fans complain, moan. What are they going to complain about? They were just trying to keep him getting a record. They didn't care about winning the game. And so that was a golden moment. It was such a happy moment because I've never seen a bunch of kids as happy as that night to finish up their career at Florida. And you know what they did? A couple of them went and jumped in the pool where Flipper was. Okay? And Carlos forgot this. I had to remind him of this when I wrote about it. And Gaspar Gonzalez, the producer, found the video, and Carlos didn't believe it until he saw it. Carlos went to the flagpole and shimmied up to the top of it on the field and celebrated that moment. He forgot he did that. But anyway, that was a joyous moment, and it was a terrific player and just fun. I'm glad you had a chance to know him a little bit. I was so happy.
He's an icon. You know, he's a trailblazer. And a lot of times when you think about a guy like Carlos Alvarez, had to flee Cuba from Fidel Castro. I mean,
on a point of clarification on that, because I know I was in part of that, and I can tell you what actually happened. He doesn't want to be called a Cuban refugee. Because,
he will.
His dad wanted to leave Cuba before the refugee thing came about. His dad was a very prominent. I believe he was a lawyer.
Yeah,
and he had to give up all that stuff to leave. But
I think all his brothers. I think his brothers are lawyers too.
Yeah, one of his brothers passed a couple of years ago. Yeah,
man. Please, that dude. Him sitting in front of these youngsters who can barely hear him because they got their cell phones, out recording him. Carlos Alvarez never forgot what his dad meant to him, what his family meant to him. Could you talk about trying to start a union and thinking about, other players, players of color? A lot of times people will say, well, that's not his fight. To Carlos it was. Hey, look, I know where Carlos is from Miami, didn't go to Miami, went to Florida. For him, it was probably going to be come to Miami, graduate high school in Miami, go play for the Hurricane. Came up to Florida, and the rest is history. And I think the thing about him is he understands that too much is given, much is required.
Yes,
and he meets every single requirement. Yeah. He's small in nature, but man, his spirit is huge. He don't look like he don't seem like the type of person that shy away from. Think about it. He's a lawyer, so he fights for others now, and his profession affords him an opportunity. I'm just happy that the University of Florida, not saying they never did, but the University of Florida is giving him these platforms for which he's earned. These young people today need to know what, picking yourself up on your bootstraps.
He should be in the Ring of Honor, but I don't think he qualifies because they didn't win a championship or some stupid thing.
Hopefully for a person like Carlos Alvarez, some of these rules, some of these requirements, they need to be adjusted.
Really,
they really do. Because the thing about it, Carlos Alvarez not being in the Ring of Honor or things that's ridiculous. Because anybody, when people say, "Hey, man, teams win championships," right? So when people say he didn't do it, no, the team is going to do that. Steve Spurrier's last SEC championship was 2000. That was my freshman year, and I thank God that I was on a championship team, right? That doesn't make me better or worse than a player who didn't win a championship. If you did, if your number was called and you was out there making plays, regardless of if the team had team success, I don't think that should warrant you individually being able to be awarded for what you did. Because if Carlos Alvarez is not in the Ring of Honor, something has to change about that. Because
he personifies the word. I can't think of a person who deserves that word more than anybody. And Carlos, he was a man of honor. That was his whole deal, honor. And so I don't know what that means, but just to make sure we don't. I'm sure some people are saying, "Well, move on." We will, but just to put it in perspective, I loved one of the things Carlos said about 15 years ago about the stadium. I think it was when he got named to whatever it was. He mentioned something so clue. He said, "Look, all of us put a brick in that stadium. He might have put a whole load of bricks, but that's the way he looked at it. Everybody put a brick in that stadium, you know.
They did.
And I love that. That's what being a Gator is all about. So, it's just James Kirby's talking about Fred Pankos. Fred Pankos was such a key part to that. And I knew Fred really well. And back in those days, you could not only talk to the coaches, but you go out for a beer with them, and get to know them, whatever. And Fred was one of those people. But one of the stories that Carlos told, I'm going to do a very poor job of telling this, and then we'll do the play the spot and move on to a couple other things, unless you got other stuff you want to talk about to Carlos. I'm open with any time you want to. Is that he said in this interview the other night that he did in Gainesville, I wish I'd have been there. I would love to have been there. You heard about it. He said, was asked about the play against Houston, and Franz would love this story too. And someone asked him about that Houston played two safeties. They played man and zone combined. And Pankos was so smart. What he did was he told Carlos, when you go out there and line up with a flanker, because they had two wideouts, flanker and the wide receiver, he was a flanker. And he said, when you split out there the first time, only split 4 or 5 yards. Next play, split a little bit more. Third play, split a little bit more. He did that, and the safeties never moved. He every time came out the same spot. And Reeves dropped back, and he threw that ball. I mean, he threw it 60 yards in the air probably. He hit that bomb. Alvarez caught that ball and went right to those defenders and scored that touchdown. It was one of the 2 or 3 greatest plays in the history of Florida football. It was amazing because the Gator fans were so downtrodden. They wanted it so much for something to cheer about. Here they were against Houston, a team that year that was among the teams picked to win the national championship. They're out there, and they're got a bomb on the third play. And as Carlos said, the year before we threw 2 touchdown passes all year. And, boy, it set the world on fire. And that began the super sauce in a great year where Florida went 9-1-1. Remember, 9, never won. That's the best record ever. And I go back to, I say there's these teams that have a missing ring that should have gotten one. Well, let me tell you why they should have gotten one. They went 9-1-1, and then they got invited to play in a bowl game, the Gator Bowl. And that year, the SEC was won by Tennessee, and Doug Dickey, who had made a deal in the offseason to become the Florida coach. So Ray Graves, who's losing his job, they go up to the Gator Bowl, and by 1 point they win. They beat the SEC champion. This day and time, if you played that, you'd be the champion. So this team deserves, as a missing ring, they deserve all that they did. It was a fantastic year. He was a fantastic person and is a great friend. And I'm so glad you know about him and able to help tell the world about him.
Absolutely. I mean, Carlos Alvarez is one of the greatest stories ever be told, in college football. He just happened to have went to the University of Florida. I mean, if you start talking about some of the greatest receivers that ever touch a football in college football, Carlos Alvarez's name has to be in there, because when you get to talking about nowadays to where these wide open offenses, these funny guns, what Coach Burry did in the 90s, what everybody's doing right now, Carlos Alvarez revolutionized the receiver position when it wasn't that. That's when you ran the ball 3 yards in a cloud of dust and you play defense. But he was so gifted. They was like, hey man, if we got this type of talent out here, we got to utilize it. And last time I checked, I still think he's an all-time leading receiver in Florida history. Played 3 years.
Yeah, I think he's played 3 years. Yeah, I think I can go back and look at it, but he's right up there because it's hard. Those numbers today. You can play 8 seasons; it doesn't matter. But anyway, great job on Carlos.
Yes,
for those who got a little bored, sorry about that. He deserves this guy right here. We'll talk about Carlos Alvarez, you're blue in the face. We're going to bring him aboard, and then we're going to go take a break. My friend Franz Beard is watching basketball. He saw Clemson advance. Yeah. Let's bring Francis aboard. What's up, Francis?
Another day in paradise, guys.
Well, we just spent 30 minutes talking about Carlos Alvarez.
Is that all? You could talk about him for about the next 3.5 hours.
3 days, yeah. I know you have a lot to say about him. And Ben and I were talking. Ben had a nice evening when they were visiting with him. You resonate with that. Let me play my commercial from Meldon Law. We'll come back. We'll talk to Francis about all things, including basketball, a sport he knows something about, and about what's happening in March Madness as we speak. Stand by. Mr. Basketball is next. Jeffrey, you do a show where you ask a lot of questions. I've got one for you right now, okay, regarding how do you know whether your case is being handled right and what to do about it. In medicine, you can get a second opinion if you're not satisfied with the doctor's opinion that they have. And do you have that in law? Can you do that with lawyers?
Yeah, buddy. As a matter of fact, we get quite a few calls from folks that have signed up, particularly with the big box law firms, that they do a hell of a good job of putting ads on TV, but after that, they don't really measure up to the way we try to create a client experience that's outstanding. And we're always willing to review a case and give a second opinion, just like with a doctor, because not all law firms are created equal.
I guess that's the normal thing. Just go to Meldon Law, Google it, and find out, and just give them a call. And like you say, if you come in, you get to see a Meldon. You don't get shuffled off to somebody else. You get to see a Meldon, and that's good to know because a lot of people don't know how to do that stuff, like me. And maybe you can coach us through. So Meldon Law, they won't back down. They will take your questions about your case if you have a question.
Yes, whether it's a new case or an existing case, give us a call. We'd be glad to go over it with you. There's no charge to review your case with you. And a lot of times it makes good sense just to get a second opinion.
Good stuff from Meldon Law. They don't back down, but they will give you a second opinion. Thanks very much, Jeffrey. Let's go back to the Orange and Blue Room where two great Gators are residing. And we spent a long time talking about a player that, I dearly loved, Carlos. And I'm so proud of who he is, but he became Franz. We don't have enough time for you to talk about Carlos as much as you'd like to, but tell fans who don't know him and didn't know him what he was and what he meant to Gator football.
Well, he came here as a running back, and they moved him to wide receiver. You didn't have 24-hour news cycles and the internet at the time, so nobody outside of the state of Florida really knew who he was. Ran a 9,600 yard dash, was the state sprint champion at North Miami, and was a running back. Parents were Cuban, came here from Cuba. His dad was a lawyer in Cuba, and his parents just did whatever they had to do to survive once they got here. But they insisted on one thing: the kids are going to get an education. Carlos found the best way to do that was through football, and got his scholarship to Florida, came here, and they immediately moved him to wide receiver. And you could tell the freshman team that, oh my gosh, Reeves and Alvarez had something special. I remember the FSU, Florida FSU game was Thanksgiving morning in 1968. Oh my gosh, Reeves and Alvarez just absolutely lit it up. And, they had a guy named Andy Chaney too, who would have been
Live Oak,
who would have been right there with Carlos except he tore up his knee, never was the same again. But and the same thing happened to Carlos. What's sad about it, buddy, is with both these guys, the surgery they had then was complicated and nasty.
Barbaric.
And barbaric. It is routine surgery now, both of them. Both of them had their careers cut short because the technology and medicine had not advanced that far. But I got to tell you what, when he was healthy, Carlos Alvarez was something to see. 88 catches his sophomore year. Um, Unbelievable what he could do. First play, first catch he made, it's against Houston. Let me set this up. I know we're going to talk a little bit about basketball, but I got to set up the play. Reeves and Alvarez worked on this pass all summer long. They threw it so many times. Both of them told me on this one beautiful night back in the summer of 2009 that they thought they could have thrown and completed that pass blindfolded, both of them. That's how many times they threw it. Well, Fred Pancoast was the offensive coordinator. And one of the things he did was he came in there, they planned this play. And he flops his tight end instead of to the left side where Alvarez, he flops his tight end to the right side. That makes the Houston safety go over about 3 yards to his left, the right side, in other words. And Pancoast knew that there's no way Tommy Peacock, Houston's All-America corner, could cover Carlos. They didn't know Carlos was the state sprint champion in high school. And so they also took the advantage of flanking Carlos out another 3 to 4 extra yards to the left. So they've got the safety who's going to give help is already about 4 or 5 steps to his left. And you got Carlos 3 or 4 extra steps to his left. There's no way they can get over the top help. Carlos, whoop, whoop, whoop. Pass comes out there. Carlos catches it the ball was out at the Florida 28. Carlos caught the ball about the 40-yard line of Houston, and there was no way he was going to get caught. It was just a waltz into the end zone, and what a night. But I'll also say this. I got to throw this in here. That was the afternoon that the touchdown dance was invented. It was invented right here at Florida Field by a guy named Elmo Wright, who was a magnificent wide receiver for the Houston Cougars. And Elmo Wright invented the touchdown, and he caught 4 touchdown passes that day, and he did the dance after every one of them, and people booed him, and he loved it. But Kenny, their quarterback threw 5 touchdown passes and for 400 yards, and nobody knew it because Florida won the game 59-35.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to put a picture up here right now real quick and show you this was a meeting this week over at let's see, hold on a second. Freddie Weavy sent me the picture, and it was they're celebrating in the movie the Gaspar Gonzalez, who was the producer of the it wasn't a 30 to 30 Ben, it was a special feature they did on ESPN on Carlos about 4 years ago, and they turned it into a movie. And he actually had at his press conference, he actually did what happened on that play. He described it in his press conference. I don't have the bite, but he talked about the fact that they sort of sneaked up on the safeties, and they told Carlos every time when he line up close to he was a flanker, line up 4 or 5 yards out, and then go 6, 7 yards, and then go 8 yards. And each time he did, he got further and further out to set up this play. And here he is talking about it. And then when he got ready to hit the bomb, he did hit the bomb, and the safeties they never adjusted. There was Carlos telling the story last night. There's a cool looking hat there. So lots of good stuff. I don't want to dominate the conversation, and we have lots to talk about with football and basketball and even maybe a little baseball. So why don't you kick us off, friends, about what Arizona getting knocked off? What do you see happening tonight?
I see North Carolina winning the game against Alabama. I do not trust Alabama to beat North Carolina. Yeah, I don't think they'll.
Okay.
Too many skilled people, and North Carolina can dominate the game on the inside. And as we saw when Florida beat Alabama twice. You dominate them on the inside, and they got troubles. Alabama can win the game. Now let me say this: they can win the game, but for them to win the ball game, they're going to have to hit 15 3-pointers to win this ball game. If they don't hit 15 3-pointers, they aren't going to win it.
Ben, your thoughts on the games tonight? Let's just say we've got four games tonight. All right, four games. Arizona got beat by Clemson. UConn, San Diego State are underway. I don't know. I think UConn was winning.
Yeah, UConn dominated that one.
And North Carolina, Alabama, we just talked about. Then we got Iowa State, Illinois. Ben, your thoughts there?
I think I agree with what Franz just said about Alabama. Alabama's one of those type teams. I mean, if they get hot from the 3-point line, but 15 threes, even with a team. 15 threes, even in today's game, that's saying a lot. That means that, you obviously rebounding well, you obviously getting back on defense, you obviously, finding a way to get guys in space. But the thing about, a team like Alabama, it's all about, hey man, do you have staying power? North Carolina didn't even make the tournament last year. Duke did not make the tournament last year. When you talk about blue bloods in basketball, North Carolina, Duke, Kentucky, UCLA, Kansas. I think for Alabama is, do you have staying power? Because obviously the SEC has, definitely underwhelmed. But a lot of teams going out in the first round, including our Gators. I think the thing about this Alabama team is, can you be what you haven't been? Can you find a way to not get dominated inside, and can you find a way to make it a game? But the thing about North Carolina is just like Alabama football. You are always playing for legacy. It is always legacy. No matter what, they're going to compare you to the teams of the past. So I think, Alabama to me is one of those teams that obviously they playing out of their minds right now. No one saw them going this deep into the tournament, when I had other teams going a little deeper. But we'll see what happens. I think North Carolina is a team that's not going to get flustered. When you play ball, you got some of the best teams in the country that you have to play routinely year in and year out. I'm looking forward to seeing the game, but everybody going to be talking about Arizona going down to Clemson, as they should. But Alabama, as you mentioned, friends, they can find a way to not get dominated down low, and they can have a guy that gets hot like the kid that played for Oakland and just be shooting out of his mind. They might have a shot, in this game tonight. But I just think that Alabama, no matter what they say, anything past the first round with Alabama basketball is a plus these days, even though they have been playing better as of late. But I think North Carolina, they playing for something different. And like I said, I don't know how many Cinderella still left in the tournament, but the closer them Blue Bloods get to the Elite Eight in the Final Four, they find a way to come up big. I don't see North Carolina.
You're right. They do find a way. Good evening to our friend LorenMeadows. I'm sure he's got a few basketball thoughts, and we are going to talk some football. Did you want to finish up anything, Franz, before we moved on?
Well, UConn just showed who they are, and this is the reason why I think they are the team to beat, because you try to play them any style and they can play it. And they got the size. You want to play a power game, they've got the size. You want to run, they can run with you. You want to slow it down, fine. They'll do it just about any way you want. And that's credit to Danny Hurley, their coach, who built a team to play in March. Because here's the thing, when you're in the Big East, or let's say Todd Golden in the SEC, you know what the teams in your league are going to do. When you get to March, though, you're playing teams that you haven't played before, that you haven't had time to prep for, and who may play a totally different style, and you may have one day to get ready for them. And this is why it's so important to build a team for March, which is what Danny Hurley's done. He's built a team that's capable of playing any style and playing it well. And they're going to be the team to beat no matter what.
All right, well said. Let's go talk to our man, LorenMeadows. I'm going to give him dealer's choice, since he's been waiting around to get 2 cents. What he wants to talk about? Football? You want to talk about the Final Four March Madness? What do you got, Coach?
We can segue to football. I agree with Franz. North Carolina is just going to be a little too much inside for Alabama, I think, and we can leave it at there, and then we can move to a little football.
All right, let's do that. We spent 45 minutes talking about Carlos Alvarez. You know who he is, Loren?
Oh yeah. Carlos is he's a big deal on and off the field, active off the field, and and then one of Florida's greatest receivers. Absolutely.
Did you know there was a movie out coming out on him?
Yeah.
They had a ESPN. Gaspar Gonzalez did it, and that was out. And he made a movie. They had a press conference for us. We didn't get to go to that last night. Freddie Weeby was there with some others, and they were introducing Carlos, talking about him. And I'm glad the people are getting another cameo from Carlos because he deserves to be remembered for all he did and the things he did as a human being, especially wonderful person. All right, so guys, let me give you a temperature test. Anything we don't know too much. We've been hearing things, reading things, trying to decipher what's going on in the world of Gators football. This dribs and drabs coming in. Starting with you, Loren. You got pick up any tidbits on the Gator football?
No, I mean just was out there practice again today. Got to see him run around. I mean, status quo. Mertz is looking good. They got a few guys banged up. And still kind of trying to find their way. Justice Boone, Cam Carroll, Andy Jean. Guys that I think obviously going to help them in the fall. So it might be a little thin for the spring game and things like that. But, you don't win games in the spring. You win them in the fall. And, I think the big thing is, is this team going to stop anybody? And, we keep going back to that. I mean, I know a lot of people wanted to see changes on offense, but, that football team was good enough offensively, even with some of the struggles up front, to win 7-8 ball games. And, they just couldn't get off the field when they needed to. So, you look at just the additions, in the secondary, and then Ron Roberts and others. It's just, it's too early to tell. I think the big show will be on the 13th when they run out for the spring game. But, you got your trigger man, and I've always been a person. If you got a trigger man, you're halfway there. So Mertz is looking sharp, and they got some people around him. It'll be interesting to see where they go at receiver. I really like the young man that Chike.
Yeah, that guy came out of nowhere, Franz. You wrote about him the other day.
Shamir DK. Yeah, he is. He caught 47 balls from Graham Mertz a couple years ago, and they had a really good connection going there at Wisconsin, and he's going to be, I think, that X factor receiver that they need this year. I think Trey Wilson is your guy that's going to be able to play. I think from everything I've heard is his game has improved, that he's going to be able to be a downfield receiver consistently this year. Last year, he did not have the downfield skills yet. He hadn't really learned how to be a precise route runner. They ran him mostly on just drags and tunnel screens, things like that gave him make you miss opportunities. Now he's going to have that opportunity to all of a sudden show that wiggle to a cornerback and leave a cornerback with brown stain on the back of his pants because
shoe polish.
You got shoe polish. He's that guy. The two freshman wide receivers, Hawkins and Adams, are absolute burners. And Billy Gonzalez, I saw him in the parking lot back a couple, 3 months ago. And one of the things he said is, we're going to be able to go vertical on every single play. And it won't always be the same guy. Last year when they went vertical, you knew who it was going to be. It was going to be Ricky Pearsall. And this year, they're going to be able to go vertical, different spots every time. Yeah. Going to be improved. And Loren, you've been out there watching them.
Let me put Loren on hold for 1 second. I got to get this commercial, or we will be through the program, friends. Thank you. And we'll get Loren back and get back to Ben. Let me tell you folks about North Central Florida's newest premier independent diagnostic testing MRI facility. The reason you need to know about it, if you need MRI, these people can give you the best customer service experience you ever had. They're open now in Gainesville, North Central Florida area is open, and you can get your own times for some of your MRIs. You can go nights, weekends. They will custom make your appointments. So they know people are busy, and they're going to try to help them out. And so you go by and see them and set up a weekend or night deal, and you can get it done. MRI equipment is modern. MRI unit has one of the largest bores of any in the newer high-strength MRI units at 71 centimeters. Allows comfortable scanning for potential claustrophobia in larger patients. Check them out, TitanMRI.com. Loren, did you have a quick comment before I go to Franz, before I go to Ben and get his take on what he's feeling and seeing and thinking about Gator football?
Yeah, no, I just, to echo what Franz said, I think they're going to have a, nice plethora of guys to throw to. I think one thing that's been, been slept on is the fact that Keon Zipper also returns and he can be a mismatch in some of those situations on offense when they kind of spread things out. So with Eugene Wilson, DK, and, Zip and some of the others, I mean, people forget, you still got Andy Jean, you got Aiden Mizell. I mean, there's some guys out there. And, when Andy Jean, he's kind of off to the side right now, kind of getting himself together. But, I mean, when you see him up close, I said to one of the other guys in me, I was like, man, you don't realize how big he is. And so, I think going forward, like I said, we get Ben's thoughts. But, yeah, I mean, it just, I never have seen this team as a downtrodden team. To me, it's a 7-win team at least. But, they got to make plays.
Ben.
No, I mean, obviously, I had to get all my takes from what I get to see on social media. Obviously, it's the Graham Mertz, a Lagway show as it should be. But I think the thing about this team this year, I mean, when you look at the fact that we don't, Ricky Pearsall being there last year, really showing them guys how to play the position, not that you play the position. I mean, the fact that Khalil Jackson, who definitely come from the royal family, Willie Jackson's son, he's coming back, and you mentioned Dyke, him coming over. I mean, the tight end position, led by Arlis Borderham. Want to see him take the next step. Keon Zipper, what he don't get enough credit for is when everybody talk about jumping in the portal, and I know he's been injured. He never made waves. He said, "Look, I'm gonna try to stick it out where I am." I'm looking forward to. I always say this when it comes to a quarterback. It's not can he throw it downfield. Will you give him a chance to do it? Will you give Graham Mercy? Because this is the thing about throwing the ball down the field. It is completed the less, but it's needed the most because it's not about completing it. It's about throwing it. Everybody's these defenses are going to crowd the line of scrimmage because they want to stop the run to make us one-dimensional, as they should. Even though I think Montreal and Trae are going to have something to say about that. I think it's going to be exciting, on offense. But once again, you notice this whole spring. Only thing people said was, is Graham Mertz going to participate in spring? Yep, that's all they want to know, because he was the bright spot. This time last year, we saying we got this kid coming over. Is he big? Is he ready? Yes.
Can he throw?
I mean, listen. What 22 touchdown passes, 3 picks, 4 picks? You'll take that. You'll take that any year. I will take that any year. But I think this year he's coming back with confidence. And Graham Mertz came back knowing we're going to get DJ Lagway. Let me tell you something. In the world of they don't want to compete, Graham Mertz said, yeah, I do. If this kid's better than me, he going to play. I know that. If he's better than me, he definitely looked the part. But Graham is saying, look, when I got to Florida, you know what Alex Brown told Darryl Lee, the number one defensive end of the country? You good, but you ain't going to play over me, right? He told him, you a good player. You're not going to play over me. That wasn't arrogance. That was understanding. Look, man, you gotta know how to play this position. Not that you play it, but I'm looking forward to seeing the offense go out there and do what they do. But I feel like what Loren said, what Franz said, it don't be the thing if you can't stop nobody. I love what Will Harris is doing with the DBs, and they say he bring that energy no matter where he goes. As far as like, if we can, once again, it's as simple alignment, assignment, track the ball in the air, get off the field on third down. Stop worrying about what former players are saying. That if you used to go to Florida and you saying stuff about it, that is your right. It ain't worth us getting all up in arms. Hey, you want to talk? We get a chance to play him. He knows who he is. He played for another team in the SEC. We will see him in the swamp later on in the year. We'll handle business hopefully when he gets back, when he comes back to play us. But I am looking forward to this defense. Every time I see Big Dez, he looks even bigger. Every time I see Dez, good Lord, That's a lot of human being right there.
Yeah.
I'm just looking forward to see how this defense gels, because the thing about it is defense is supposed to be simple. Go out there, know what you're doing, get off the field on third down, rush the passer, be for sure tacklers. And even coming out of the spring game, you still don't know what Florida's going to be, because that's, it's all about counting healthy bodies coming out of the spring. But I'm just happy that Graham Mertz decided to come back. I think that what you said, Lauren, when people ask me what wins in college football, I say the same thing: culture. The culture that you set on the who has the best culture in college football right now, probably between, I don't know, Alabama, Georgia, and maybe Michigan right now. We'll see what happens.
I'm not sure about
Alabama. But you get that culture.
We've got to see, wait, see.
They still got a good culture. They got a new head coach, but the culture is still what it is. I'm saying Florida, but Florida, your culture. Florida got their quarterback, and I don't care who you are. I don't care what league it is. Pop Warner, middle school, high school, college, pro. You got a good QB, you got a shot. You got a shot.
Go ahead, Franz.
By the way, Ben, as I understand it, Georgia has decided they are going to suspend Trevor Etienne for the last 5 minutes of the spring game.
What?
And they're going to make and not only that, they're going to make him run a lap around the field. I'm telling you what, the Kirby Smart is a masochistic son of a gun.
There it is.
He's kidding about that, but anyway.
Hey, you know what? When that happened, though, right? I got to say this too, but when it comes to if you played in Florida, you moved on, right? You moved on. And I understood this. I understood this when I was in the NFL at the time, and they asked me about, hey Ben, describe your time with the Titans. I said, man, I appreciate them. They gave a country boy an opportunity for a dream to come true. I don't get this. If you don't want to be with us, that's fine, but don't make stuff up. Like, don't say, "Oh well, I feel like I'm being coached now."
Yeah, that was
I go, really.
Well, here's the thing I'll tell you, though. There's a reason why Sean Spencer is no longer the defensive line coach.
Just saying.
Think about that.
I'm just saying. Here's the thing, though. People think, hey, if I go to a new team, clean slate, I'm a different player. Let me tell you something. And I say this to every player. If you want to transfer, see how bad they fight for you to stay. If you want to know how a team feels about you, when you just say, I'm leaving, see how that head man fight for you to stay. If he go, hey, man, I wish you the best. He's letting you know, I really know you. Like, I want you to be here, but see, that kind of stuff wouldn't fly. When I was at Florida, man, please, if you couldn't even say that kind of stuff to Ron Zook, man, I want to leave right now, get out. He would have kicked you out right then, because no matter what, right? No matter what. We got a team down there in South, we got a team down there, way down there in South Florida, got a lot to say. I don't know why, but they do. They do. Got a team over there in the Panhandle, real close to, not too far from where Buddy Martin be laying his head these days, you know what I'm saying? Not too far, right? And congratulations for what they did. Let me tell you something. If I did not mention your team, if you are in between Gainesville and Miami, please be quiet. Please be quiet. I respect you now. I respect you. But please be quiet. I mean, the fact that if you the University of South Florida, where is Tampa? Tampa ain't no. It used to be University of West Florida. That ain't in those. They know it's south of Gainesville. It's not South Florida. Out of here with that. Anyway, I'm just saying. Don't get me started with these teams, these fan bases that be getting my Twitter handle telling me, "Hey Ben, man, how you feel about them? Feel about who? UCF, man, FAU, man." I said, listen. I had to tell a guy. I said, listen. I went to UF. If you want to know how I feel about you, just switch the letters. That's how I feel about you.
Hey, by the way, Wyatt Langford drove in the first run of the ball game of the season for the Texas Rangers.
Yeah,
he's also got a base hit. He's 1 for 2 with an RBI in his first major league game, and not bad. You talk about country boys, Ben. Hey, it doesn't get more country. You know, Swainsboro, Georgia is a metropolis compared to Trenton, Florida.
You ain't lying.
Swainsboro is like big city downtown compared to Trenton.
Was there a baseball season? Did it start today?
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
I don't recall it. How started today? Huh?
So, buddy,
it didn't start today because I would have seen a game.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm trying to forget about it. Okay.
Yeah. Buddy, you left it up there for a while, and I'm going to answer Dan's question. So Alberti Remdo, who is kind of a fan favorite, from
Denmark.
Denmark, thanks, Fran, is going to leave the program. And, I kind of went at it a little bit with some guys online because I think we want to be careful in lumping this young lady in with the status quo of those that transfer and things like that, and understand that the program under Kelly, the style of play has evolved. And friends, you can echo this. They're a little bit more free flowing kind of team. They play at a little bit quicker pace. But so she's going to go somewhere that I think will fit her style of play.
And she's a graduate.
She has been the consummate teammate. She has done everything that this program and this university has asked of her. And to lump her in with others, and there were some comments and things like that, that is not this young lady. She is, thousands of miles away from home, is the consummate teammate, consummate professional, will kiss every baby, sign every autograph. And so, I wish her, in this case, I wish her the best of luck. She won't end up in Georgia, I can tell you that. So, you know what I mean? So,
and she's a graduate. She's a college graduate who's going to be able to pick and choose where she wants to go. As I understand it, that had a big say in what she wanted to do too, because she wants to go to grad school. And, hey, what better way to do it than have basketball pay your way for grad school too?
Yeah.
Okay, it's getting close to sign-off time, guys. This is where we get to the story time. Excuse me, Loren. Vander wants you to tell a story, friends. I'm not going to give you 10 minutes to tell it, okay?
Nah, we'll save this for a night. We'll save this for another night.
No, you got basketball to watch, I know.
We got basketball to watch, and I got a couple things to throw in there as well about basketball. Watch what's happening at Ohio State. They have a point guard named Bruce Thornton, whose little brother is Bryce Thornton. Bruce Thornton is the point guard at Ohio State, and he's really, really good. He hadn't entered the portal yet, but there are whispers that he's going to be in the portal and that he's thinking very seriously about coming back home to the state of Florida and being at the same school with baby brother. Another one to watch is a guy named Corin Johnson, who was the point guard at Washington this year. Really good kid, big, strong kid. He's named Florida as one of his final five, and I think Florida right now it's either going to be Florida. He's going to decide to stay with the new coach at Washington. But good things happening there. Eddie Lambert Jr. is Eddie Lampkin Jr. is in the portal from Colorado. He's a guy I hope they get, because after watching our guys bounce off of him, he is a man's man. He is 6'11", and they say he's 300, but I don't think he's a biscuit more than 320. And he looks like he should be playing tackle in the NFL, and people bounce off him, and it wouldn't bother me to get that guy, because you need a guy like that people just bounce of and they're afraid of in the middle, and he is that guy. So,
all right, good stuff, friends. Guys, thank you, Loren. Thank you, Ben. Ben, great stuff on Carlos Alvarez.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for sharing that half hour with me on Carlos. Appreciate all you guys. Good program tonight. It was a little bit of a watch party, but hey, some people like to hear a good show once in a while too, not just watch basketball. All right, guys. Good night. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
All right, friends. All right, buddy. We'll get you a new Tampa Bay Rays hat. I told you.
Don't start on me. Good night, Ben. Good night, Ben. See, I knew he couldn't. He had to give me a cheap shot. He just couldn't wait. All right. I'll take it. It's just opening day. I can handle it. All right. And thank you, folks. Thank you, all my guests. And thank you to our sponsors, especially this one, Renstar Medical Research, longtime sponsor of this program. We're very grateful for what they've been doing for us, as we are to Titan MRI and our good friends over at Meldon Law. The people at Renstar want you to know about how much they rely on you as a volunteer. They know that without volunteers in our program, they would not be able to do the testing they're doing to bring new therapies to the public safely in these clinical trials. They wouldn't exist without your commitment. So if you decide to participate again or would like to the first time at Renstar Medical Research, go to renstar.net, find out the details. If you qualify, you can get compensation for time and travel, and you might receive study-related medications and procedures to you at no cost to you or your insurance company. You also may gain access to new investigational medications and devices not otherwise available. So check them out. Go to renstar.net, find out what they're doing at their company here in Ocala and all over North Central Florida. Renstar Medical Research, seeking tomorrow's answers to the health questions of today. Thanks to the folks at Renstar. Thanks to Jeffrey Meldon, and thanks to TitanMRI.com. Have a good night, folks. Take the weekend off, and we'll catch up to you on Monday. Appreciate you. Thanks very much for standing by with us, and let us serve you tonight, all right? We'll come back tomorrow night and have more for you, all right? Have a good night.